like it's goodbye to Granny now, huh?
I caught Rachel muttering to herself and went back to bed puzzled. Rachel, who's entered being, compared to me for her lack of cooking skills, has always disliked me. Then, out of the blue, Rachel said she'd cook for us. Something felt off. I discreetly swapped my steak with my husband's to avoid suspicion. Then, my husband collapsed, his eyes rolling back, leading to a shocking conclusion. I'm Melissa, 59 years old. I married over 30 years ago. My husband, a banker, is always busy, so I quit my job to focus on homemaking after we got married. Then our son Thomas was born and life became a whirlwind of parenting and childcare. It was tough at times, but it all flew by in hindsight. Thomas left for college and now it's just my husband and me. Later Thomas married Rachel. She's flashy and seems flighty. She's beautiful, but not the kind I'm familiar with, so I rarely initiated conversations. I've seen enough mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts on TV and thought maintaining a healthy distance was best, so I didn't interfere much in Thomas's marriage. 3 years after Thomas's wedding, during Christmas, Thomas and his wife unexpectedly came to visit. They hadn't before due to his busy schedule, but this year he managed to get leave.
Oh, Christmas isn't complete without this soup.
Thomas relished the soup I made, making me smile. I've always loved cooking, and both Thomas and my husband have always enjoyed my meals. Being praised for my cooking is the best feeling.
Being Mom's cooking is just the best.
I'm glad to hear that.
Rachel should learn to cook like this.
See now.
Thomas, full from eating, laid down and glanced at Rachel. It was a light joke, but Rachel's expression hardened.
Thomas, don't say that. It's nice enough she's here.
But Rachel never cooks.
Stop exaggerating.
No, really, she doesn't cook. It's always supermarket meals or delivery. Tasty but gets old. Brings you your butt.
I was stunned.
Not once since you got married?
And your coffee? This...
3 years into their marriage, and not a single meal cooked. Wait, unbelievable.
Anything he cooks is instant ramen, right?
Thomas said, laughing crudely, a bit drunk. He was just teasing a bit. Rachel glared at me fiercely and silently left the room. Such sensitivity. Even if he was drunk, saying that in front of in-laws. Even if he was drunk, saying that in front of in-laws must have been upsetting. Ending helpless, I followed Rachel. She sat on the stairs at the end of the hallway.
Thomas, he means no harm, but he's not great at reading the room.
What do you want? Is that sarcasm?
Her voice was lower than usual, which made me feel a bit constricted.
I didn't mean it like that. Sure, I was surprised to hear you don't cook. But nowadays you can easily get food without cooking at home. And women don't have to cook, right?
You say that, but mock me in your heart.
That's not true.
I intended it as a reassurance, but it seemed to backfire with Rachel glaring at me.
It's really annoying, pretending to be nice. You make me feel uncomfortable with all your cooking. It comes off as so patronizing.
I was taken aback by her words. It had been a while since Thomas had come home, and it was Rachel's first time visiting with him. I had put extra effort into cooking, not realizing it was making her uncomfortable.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you felt that way.
I really don't like that attitude. Can you just leave me alone?
Rachel stormed back into the living room after yelling. I was so shocked by her strong words that I couldn't move for a while. I thought our relationship with Rachel would become distant, but she came alone a few weeks later.
What brings you here today?
Right? I can't come to my in-laws' house unless I have a reason. I was surprised and flustered by Rachel's confrontational attitude.
I didn't think I had been rude. A heaviness settled in my chest.
Rachel walked in as if she owned the place and went straight to my husband.
Long time no see. Space I were the yours.
Oh, good to see you. I remembered you liked these cookies when I passed by the store, so I bought some for you.
Thanks, was not, tortoises.
He makes some coffee.
I was taken aback by Rachel's fawning voice towards my husband, so different from her attitude towards me. Apparently, they had gotten close during Christmas, when I was busy with housework. As I made coffee, feeling uneasy, they were chatting happily.
Well, being a banker is impressive, especially back in the day, right?
Oh, I guess I did earn more than most of my classmates. The maze boosters! Amazing. Must have been tough, harder than now, huh?
My husband laughed shallowly at her obvious flattery, not wanting to see my husband pleased by a young woman's adulation. I left to go shopping. Not wanting to see my husband pleased by a young woman's adulation. I left to go shopping. When I returned, Rachel's shoes were still there. I could hear their conversation from the hallway and couldn't help but listen in.
Thanks for the money. It's a big help.
No problem. Break squirty this side. Let's ask if you're in trouble again. British before Buster's there. Hopefully your mom's surgery goes well.
Yes, thank you. I should head back. It's getting late.
Traveler crosses, I bumped into Rachel as she was leaving the living room. Surprised by her sudden appearance, I was more concerned about their conversation.
Is your mom having surgery?
Wait, that's eavesdropping? That's the worst.
I didn't mean to listen. I just overheard. Is everything okay?
It's none of your business, Melissa.
First, I felt the need to hold her back. Something felt off. Something felt off.
You borrowed money from my husband, right? I can't just ignore that.
Ken kicks you not? Yes, I borrowed it because my mom needs surgery and we don't have the money. What's it to you? Are we done here?
What kind of illness? When is the surgery? It must be hard, right?
Just stop it already.
Rachel stubbornly refused to give details. I'd never heard about Rachel's mom being ill. I thought Thomas would have mentioned something if there was an issue. Suddenly coming over with my husband's favorite treats and borrowing money, it seemed like she might be up to something bad. I felt bad for suspecting Rachel, but I couldn't help it. Yet I had no proof. Unable to hold back the angrily departing Rachel, I let her go with loud footsteps. Pursuing it further seemed pointless, as she wouldn't answer anything. That day, I just sent Thomas an email expressing concern about Rachel's mom. Station, after that, Rachel started visiting once or twice a month. She always came when my husband was home and treated me coldly.
Melissa, why don't you go shopping or something? She would suggest trying to send me away.
I wondered what they talked about, but didn't want to show my distrust openly, as it may worsen the relationship with Rachel. I didn't want to upset Thomas, so I silently left her shopping. However, if I returned early, she would complain and clearly treat me as an intruder. I couldn't help but suspect something was going on, but my husband evaded my questions, and I couldn't understand what Rachel was up to. Then one day, something changed. Thomas and Rachel came over late at night, saying they wanted to cook.
Rachel wants to try cooking, and not just for me, but for Dad too. It's late, but they need to prepare. And we stay here for tonight!
Of course, you're always welcome.
While my husband welcomed Thomas and his wife, I felt uneasy. Rachel, who hated me and hadn't cooked for 3 years, suddenly wanting to cook for us? Irritates. Rachel giving me a creepy, meaningful smile when only I could see. Her eerie smile made my heart race. Not just Rachel's expression, but Thomas's face also caught my attention. He seemed lost in thought, only half listening to Rachel. Brits people tend to say I had a bad feeling about this. It was late, so I went to bed after a bath. However, I couldn't sleep and got up to use the bathroom, hearing voices from the kitchen. It was 2 a.m., a time when everyone should be asleep. Could it be a ghost? Fearing the worst, I peeked into the kitchen and saw Rachel standing there.
Looks like it's goodbye to Granny now, huh?
I couldn't make out her words clearly as she whispered to herself, suspicious of Rachel talking alone in the shadows. I didn't want to start a fight at this hour and disturb my husband or Thomas, so I quietly returned to the bedroom. The next morning, Rachel was eagerly cooking in the kitchen.
Can I help with anything?
No, I'm doing this alone, so don't come into the kitchen.
But there's cleaning up to do.
I said I'm fine.
Being chased out of the kitchen, I returned to the living room. It all seemed very suspicious. Why was she so adamant about keeping me out of the kitchen? And I couldn't stop thinking about the previous night's incident. Was she planning something? The anxiety was unbearable. And what Rachel cooked was steak.
Steak for breakfast? This is luxurious.
Both my husband and Thomas were surprised. They probably didn't expect Rachel to make steak after practicing cooking. Rachel brought 4 steaks to the table. That's when I noticed something odd. On my plate was different. This plate wasn't from our house, so Rachel must have brought it. Maybe she brought it just for today, as she usually doesn't cook. But why didn't she buy the same design for everyone?
This is for you, Melissa.
The steak Rachel handed me confidently didn't look different from the others, but I felt there must be a reason my plate was different. Thank you. My husband and Thomas didn't suspect anything, their stomachs rumbling at the sight.
Right, I ate awesome spicer.
Can you help me bring the soup then?
Sure, of course. She gulps down.
Thomas went to the kitchen with Rachel. My husband stood up from the sofa.
I'll go to the bathroom before eating.
Everyone left the living room, leaving me alone. That's when I secretly swapped my steak with my husband's. I just didn't feel like eating it. When Thomas, Rachel, and my husband returned, they sat down without noticing the switch.
Let's eat. What's eat? Ashley,
Just as my husband was about to eat, Rachel shouted, "That's Melissa's."
But it was too late. My husband had already taken a big bite.
That's wrong, Rachel. Us brick. It doesn't matter whose steak it is, right?
Well,
While watching Rachel panic, my husband started choking. I turned to him alarmed.
that's wrong, Melissa. Relaxy. Whip. My bird's keepers, Robert.
He was groaning in pain, his eyes rolling back. I was in shock, only able to call out to him. But Thomas calmly called an ambulance. They arrived quickly after we explained the situation, and my husband was rushed to the hospital. I joined him in the ambulance, and Thomas and his wife followed in their car. My husband was immediately taken to the treatment room. A few hours later, Dr. Anderson informed us he was stabilized after a stomach wash. Dr. Anderson spoke to us with a serious face.
Did he ingest anything unusual before collapsing?
He ate a steak just before.
Was it store-bought?
No, Rachel made it.
Buying beer rats then from where?
Dr. Anderson fell silent with a puzzled look. Then, looking at us gravely, he said, "Actually, we found components of rodenticide in his vomit." "It's rodenticide?"
Rachel, what's the meaning of this?
Thomas confronted Rachel. Her face turned pale, and she broke out in a cold sweat.
I don't know. It must have been Melissa. She was alone before eating.
"I don't have rodenticide, and it would be hard to add it without being caught in just a moment."
You can't know until you try. It wasn't me.
Rachel was clearly panicking and looked guilty to anyone. If Rachel did it, her actions in the night and the different plate for me all made sense. Then let's call the police.
Wait, why would you do that?
Is everything at home untouched, Thomas?
So we left immediately and didn't touch anything.
Thomas nodded seriously. Then the police can determine if rodenticide was really mixed in the steak and who did it.
But we don't need to go that far, do we?
Not necessary. Do you really think so? It could have been fatal. I couldn't help but get emotional. The thought that my husband could have died from such a trivial matter was unforgivable. The police will find where the rodenticide came from and whose fingerprints are on it.
The police will find where the rodenticide came from and whose fingerprints are on it.
No, police, please.
Why are you refusing so much? You didn't do it, right, Rachel?
Pressed by me, Rachel crumpled to the floor, messing up her hair.
It was me. I did it.
She must have realized she couldn't escape and confessed, glaring at me fiercely. "Rachel, I never thought you'd do something like this."
Wait, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean for Robert to eat it, but then...
Rachel clung to Thomas in panic. But his look only grew colder.
Rachel, I never thought you'd do something like this.
Wait, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean for Robert to eat it, but then...
Rachel crumpled to the floor, messing up her hair.
You were trying to kill my mom.
I wasn't trying to kill anyone. I just wanted a little revenge.
Revenge, that's the product.
Thomas scowled, while Rachel started making excuses like a child.
Because Thomas compared me to Melissa and said hurtful things about not being able to do housework.
What's harassment over that?
That's not just something. I was really hurt, and Melissa mocked me for not being able to cook like it was an insult. I had enough.
Isn't that bad, right? You hardly ever sit at home. Only last Christmas.
Well, that's,
Rachel struggled to find words, her eyes darting around.
Rachel, you've been coming to our house almost every month, haven't you? Haven't you told Thomas?
Bakes. What are you talking about?
You, my husband, always seem to enjoy talking together. I was often out because you treated me poorly. I don't know what you talked about, but...
What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that.
It seemed she hadn't told Thomas about her visits, and she was visibly shaken. But Thomas remained calm.
If you are harassed and uncomfortable, why not just avoid visiting home?
I've been to your home. That's a lie.
That's a lie. We're
Thomas firmly stated, to which Rachel looked bewildered.
Do you believe Melissa over me, Thomas?
dang, that's Grady.
Wait, what's wrong with you? You mama's boy? I hate you, Thomas.
Rachel screamed like a child throwing a tantrum. I watched her in disbelief as she stomped the ground in anger.
Sure, you're supposed to love me? Then listen to me.
It's impossible. I do.
Rachel's eyes widened in shock at Thomas's calm response.
Why not?
Does your mom's surgery go well?
Bansters? What are you talking about?
I done the bristles of that. You said you needed money from Dad for your mom's surgery, right?
With Clarence, Rachel glared at me accusingly.
But you told on me?
Don't blame everything on Mom. But don't blame everything on Mom. I was bothered that you never consulted me, so I called your family. Your mom is fine.
I was so surprised that I could only stare at Thomas. Rachel was sweating profusely.
I suspected something and had a detective agency, Expire shop for crime. Yes. Rachel, you're having an affair, aren't you?
The what?
I gasped at the shocking revelation. Thomas pulled out several photos from his bag. Photos of Rachel walking hand in hand with an unknown man, looking happy.
You've been giving this man several expensive gifts, haven't you?
Rachel, were you using the money from Robert to give gifts to your lover?
It seems she was using the money from Dad for her affair. And because Mom was at home, Rachel feared Dad would find out, so she wanted her out of the way.
Rachel just looked down, her silence confirming it. No wonder she wanted me out of the house. Thinking I'd be out of the way, Rachel must have thought it would be easier to borrow money from my husband.
A few days ago, I received the investigation results and was planning to talk about it, but before I could, Rachel started saying she wanted to cook for us. I thought I'd talk after that, but I never expected this.
I understood why Thomas had looked troubled when they visited. He'd been suspecting and agonizing over Rachel's affair.
I can't continue with Rachel. They'll be filing for divorce.
Rachel was silent, sniffling. With all the evidence against her, she had nothing to say, but her demeanor changed at Thomas's next words.
Let's go to the police together to ask for and how it is.
Fear. Why would that happen?
Please, you pay for what you've done.
Like a crime. It didn't kill anyone, so it's fine, right?
I was appalled that Rachel didn't understand the gravity of her cruel and dangerous actions.
If such things are acceptable, then there's no need for police. Maida, what you did is unforgivable.
Down. What you do is to me. I'm remorseful. I'm not going to the police.
Rachel screamed in a high-pitched voice. She resisted as Thomas tried to take her outside the hospital room, both of us at a loss. Then it happened.
Me too! Oh, damn!
A hoarse voice came from the bed, and we turned to see my husband awake.
Scratz, people are you okay? I was so worried.
Stop lying! I carried bread to Expire store Bordeaux. I heard everything and ear by West. But
She tried to win over my husband, probably hoping he'd take her side. But my husband acted first.
Free you.
it seems I've been used by you.
That's not true.
I'm not angry, though.
My husband was still weak, looking at the ceiling and speaking slowly. Rachel visibly relaxed at his words.
Robert, I'm so sorry. I swear I won't do it again. Thank you for fitting me.
She held his hand, smiling. I felt nauseated seeing her smile after all she had done. It makes me laugh a lot when I do things like that. I couldn't forgive her, even if my husband did. As I was about to protest, my husband whispered to Rachel.
I've a guinea for cheaper search. Kids, but you'll go to the police and pay for your crimes.
Langdon? Why? You just said you weren't angry? Why do I have to go to the police?
I'm quite angry about the money. I'll never forgive you for trying to feed Melissa that.
Rachel was shocked to see my husband angry for the first time.
You'll pay for this crime for the rest of your life.
Realizing she had no allies, Rachel slumped down, defeated. Then she screamed,
It's all your fault. If you weren't here, none of this would have happened. I'll never forgive you.
"Stop acting like a child. Even if I wasn't here, you would have been caught eventually. The affair, the money, it's all your fault."
Shut up.
Rachel cried, repeating that she didn't want to go to the police, but no one sympathized with her.
I'll never forgive you for deceiving my husband and what you put him through.
Rachel started crying again. She looked desperate, a far cry from her usual confident, sarcastic self. Thomas, unmoved, took Rachel's hand and led her out of the room. The police investigation revealed that the steak my husband ate was soaked in a large amount of water dissolved with andesite. It was hidden in our kitchen drawer, and only Rachel's fingerprints were on it, leading to her arrest. She confessed she thought the strong taste wouldn't be detected in the steak. After being bailed out, Rachel tried to turn to her lover, but he cut ties with her after learning about her crimes. Left with no one to turn to, Rachel resorted to working as a hostess. But at her age, it wasn't easy to earn, and she often got into trouble drinking until she passed out. I was disgusted by Rachel's pathetic state and relieved we had cut ties with her. My husband, fortunately, was discharged and is living well, although he's developed an aversion to steak, likely due to trauma. Thankfully, that's the extent of his trauma. He still enjoys my cooking, and our meals together are our greatest joy. Thomas divorced and took some time to heal, but he's now dating a wonderful woman. She visited us a few times, a modest and homely lady. I sincerely hope for a bright and happy future for Thomas and his new family.